Time again. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Rory Sauter and the News. I'm Rory Sauter, your host. It is great to be back with all of you. Big show today. A lot to address, a lot to establish. Many great guests in attendance. Guys, the weekend is finally here. I hope you had a fantastic week. First show of 2024, breath of fresh air. We're going to have a big year on Rory Sauter in the News and on both networks, Censorless TV, Next Gen USA, a lot planned. I want to introduce my first guest who's with us right now. He's had a hell of a career, a hell of a life. I'm glad he's joining us for the first time. We have Daniel Bowles with us. Daniel, welcome.
Rory and audience, glad to be here. Happy Friday.
Thank you, man. You too, man. So your first time on, give us a little bio, give us a little background, how it all started for you, all that fun stuff.
Well, thanks. Glad to. So I'm a Michigan native, Marquette, Michigan, up on Lake Superior, the third generation Army veteran. And I think my venture into patriotic issues started when I was in Germany. I wrote an essay for the Freedoms Foundation at Valley Forge, and that started me thinking about patriotic issues. That was at a time in our country when Nixon stepped down and Gerald Ford was at the helm. Anyway, I've been involved in this particular Statue of Enduring Freedom project now since 2017. Our website, freedomalliancellc.com, was activated a few months ago. We're now in the process of having it promoted, as it were. And my book, can I show you my book? America's Freedom Megaphone. Been writing this, drafting for a couple of years. We were thrilled to find a publisher, Post Hill Press. Just printed it a few months ago, and my job now is to promote it. And the purpose of my book is simply to make a case for the building of the Statue of Enduring Freedom on the West Coast of America, to act as a bookend, as it were, to the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast. And in between all of that, Corey, if you wanted me to fill in, let's see. I'm a husband of over 40 years. My wife, Ingrid, is definitely my better half. I definitely married up, as most of us guys do. We are, parents of 4 daughters and a growing number of grandchildren all over the country. My wife's originally from Eastern Canada. And an interesting thing that you and your listeners would like to know about Ingrid. Ingrid is a naturalized citizen. Her parents immigrated to Canada during World War II and escaped the hell that was known as the USSR, as they were controlling and putting the thumb on the Baltic countries. And her folks came from Estonia, which is one of the 3 Baltic countries there on the Baltic Sea across from Finland. Anyway, Ingrid's wonderful. I love her, and I'm still not sure why she loves me, but I'm not going to dig down too deep on that one. So I don't know if that's the intro you wanted, Corey or Rory, but that's me.
Awesome. Good stuff. So tell us about this book, this new book. How did this all come about? What was the process like writing it? How long did it take you? What kind of research did you do? All that fun jazz.
Yeah, certainly glad to address that. I actually started putting pencil to paper 2 winters ago. We had the opportunity to spend that winter in Florida in the Pensacola area. And that's when I actually started writing the book. Mm-hmm. The ideas for the book, as I mentioned, started decades ago in my life. I have a bachelor's degree in political science. And so I've been thinking about, and I always think about historic issues regarding our country and its foundation, formulation, et cetera, et cetera. So started writing the book a couple of years ago, and the purpose of the research that I've done, well, it's essentially a lifetime of research is what it amounts to. I've drawn from current publishers, printers, and writers, as it were. Dinesh D'Souza, I quote him in my book, and all the others like Dinesh, Sebastian Gorka, and good old Newt Gingrich, and that whole group of patriotic conservatives. I'm very familiar with them, what they have written. I've read most of their books. So anyway, research is quite extensive, and all those footnotes are listed in the book. I'm not into plagiarism like, other university professors apparently and college presidents are of late. I don't get into plagiarism. Drafted the book, as I said, 2 winters ago in Florida. And the purpose of the book, and again, may I? The purpose of the book, America's Freedom Megaphone, is that we would derive the title from one of Dinesh D'Souza's books. And at the end of that book, Dinesh basically gave Americans a challenge. And he said, each of us, we do not recognize how much power and authority we do have as individuals. And he challenged all of us to pick up our own personal megaphone and do something about it. And in honor of that challenge from Dinesh D'Souza, that's how we got the title America's Freedom Megaphone. Purpose of the book, Rory, is to introduce, number one, the proposed Statue of Enduring Freedom. I've done my best to make a strong case for why we should be building this monument today and what is the purpose of the monument. And I can get into that later if you wish.
So what is it like working with Dinesh D'Souza? I can imagine that's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. He's had quite the background, quite the career.
Dinesh is one of my heroes. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
Heroes meaning immigrants from the United States who really have their act together. And let's face it, guys like Dinesh and guys like Sebastian Gorka, they understand the mission of America more than some of us Americans do who have lived here for 3 or 4 or 5 generations. I just love these guys and what they promote, what they do, and the challenge they give us, because they have come from different countries and created a successful, footprint here, whatever businesses they've chosen to get into. And I love highlighting them, and that's why I've referenced Dinesh and his books in my book. So hats off to Dinesh and all the others, immigrants.
Yeah, he's always making movies that really shine light on things that we're facing.
Well, and the way he started, when you say shine light, another term is speaking truth to power, right? Which is what our mainstream media, they're supposed to learn when they go to journalism school,
right?
Speaking truth to power. And of course, we know they're not doing that now, but Dinesh does. His first book and DVD film was talking about Obama and his viewpoint of Obama. And as a result of that, Dinesh ended up spending some time in prison. Obama didn't like what he was saying, and boom, they clamped down on him, and off he went.
Wow, that fact I did not know. I did not know that he went to prison. That's news to me.
Prison, jail, whatever. He was behind bars. He got fined, the whole 9 yards. I don't remember how many months he was in, but that's my understanding, and the research I've done, that's what happened. So Dinesh is a fearless patriot. And unfortunately, he paid a price for that and was willing to. But now look what he's done. He's written so many books, and all the DVDs and the movies, some of them have made it, to the screen, as it were. Yeah. And he's a great patriot. That's all there is to it.
What do you make of the current political climate? What we're facing right now as a nation, just with all the madness going on, all the craziness, all the chaos. It never ends. I mean, I feel like it's more dangerous and insane than it's ever been. I don't think I've ever been more unsure, more concerned. But at the same time, I do have optimism in certain areas. but other areas, not so much.
Good descriptors there, Rory. Yes, tumultuous times that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
I've addressed that specifically in chapter 4, I think it is, in my book.
Right.
For those who'd like to read it, pick it up at Amazon. By the way, my book's available on Amazon. You can go to our website and get it there if you want. But to answer your question, what do I think of it all?
Yeah.
I coin a phrase or reuse a phrase that perhaps others have used, and that is the big government coalition. And I didn't identify who I believe are members of the big government coalition. And essentially, they are individuals, they are corporations, they are media representations and organizations, they are educational individuals and establishments. And they are the folks that are hell bent on replacing Abraham Lincoln's phrase in the Gettysburg Address when he said, "And our nation shall," do you know that quote that I'm getting at, Rory? Our nation shall continue to have a rebirth of freedom of the people, by the people, and for the people, right? Wonderful
Yep.
phrase. The big government coalition, in my opinion, and many millions of others, they want to change that phrase to read of the government, by the government, and for the government. They want to change that. And they are implementing policies and programs that are creating all of this chaos that you mentioned so aptly.
What do we do in regards to our freedoms being at risk? I've never seen government abuse power like they're doing now. It's at the worst level.
Well, and that's a heartfelt question. That's a question that millions of American citizens are asking today and have been for several years.
Right.
My answer to that is we build the Statue of Enduring Freedom. The Statue of Enduring Freedom will become a positive footprint on America. It will become a symbol, a uniting symbol of individual freedom that we as patriots are right now expressing our frustration that our individual freedoms are being stepped on and being usurped by the big government coalition. Those of us who want to rally around the building of the Statue of Enduring Freedom will be able to be involved in a positive movement, as it were, through this symbol. And the key, if I can get into the mission of the monument, let me just say it this way. Historically, monuments are built to honor a past event or a past individual, and that's fine. The Statue of Enduring Freedom is being built, will be built to have a future-focused mission. And that future-focused mission is the heart of why we are building the monument. And to answer your question, what do we do about the chaos that we're in? And that drills down to our educational outreach program. We believe, and millions of others believe, that starting back in the 60s, the big government coalition, through one of their tentacles, education, through the Department of Education, started to mess up government education regarding the teaching of history, regarding the teaching of civics, and regarding teaching true historical facts about the founding of America. And
Right.
that is the mission, the future-focused mission of the Statue of Enduring Freedom. It's all about education. Our current and future generations, they will be able to learn what they haven't learned to this point in our government schools.
Speaking of government schools and the education system, what do you make of how radical it's become? I mean, we are seeing teachers enable transgenderism, telling kids they can be all these different things, however they want to identify, encouraging sex changes. You have all these teachers bringing their personal business into the classroom. And When I was a kid, for the most part, I mean, there were those rare cases, but for the most part, teachers stuck to the curriculum and they left their personal garbage at home. You know what I mean? That's for home. That's for outside of the classroom. Your thoughts?
Well, yes, and you're exactly right on that.
Yeah.
I addressed the issue of CRT and all of the other issues that have morphed into our educational government schools at this point, and that our students are being basically indoctrinated with at this point in time. And there are ways to change that. There are ways politically to change it. There are steps that can be taken, and that is for politicians and others to incorporate those steps. But the joining together, rallying together to build the Statue of Enduring Freedom is a way that all of us common citizens, as it were, can make a statement that we're fed up with everything that's happening right now, the abuse and everything that's being thrown at our children now. We're rallying around by building the statue, saying indirectly through, again, America's megaphone for freedom, that things are going to change. Things are going to change.
How do we get government out of schools, and how do we abolish finally the Department of Education? It's always talked about. They conservatives say they'll do it, never gets done.
Right.
And I'm just tired of hearing it. I want action, because that could solve 80 to 90% of the problems, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And the converse of that, 80 to 90% of the problems that we're experiencing right now are with us because they have, again, the big government coalition, education department, et cetera, they have been having a free ride and moving, incorporating their philosophy into the government school system. So to answer your question, perhaps, what can be done? Well, if I can tell you right now, and there are many others, just like you mentioned, some politicians have talked about defunding the Department of Education. The last that I remember is Ronald Reagan. That was one of his platform issues, and the Great Reagan Revolution, and he wasn't even successful in doing that. It can be done. This is my suggestion. Some other politicians have talked about this. So to address your question, it can be done, and this is the way that it can be done. The budget that right now we have going to the Department of Education, we divide that by state relative to population, and that chunk of money goes to each of the states in the form of a block grant to their state Department of Education. So they still will get the money, access to the funds that our government has allocated to education, but each state then will determine how that funding will be, spent as far as curriculum matters in each of the 50 states. And by doing that, what you also are doing is eliminating the Department of Education. Or if you don't want to eliminate it 100%, leave $1 million a year that organization can get. 1 million, just one, and they can create programs that they want, and then they can present them to the states, and the states can choose whether they want to incorporate them or not. So it completely turns on end what's happening right now, and it can be done. Like I said, that's up to politicians to make that happen.
Why do you think Ronald Reagan failed in doing so? Did he have too many obstacles in his way? Do you have just the details on that?
Well, I don't have the details on it, other than, yes, we know that was one of his platform issues. He would have done it if he could. Sometimes in presidential politics, you have to pick your battles. You only have so much. Much in the bank, as it were, and you have to decide where you're going to use that goodwill in your bank towards what projects. And for whatever reason, he ran out of the goodwill and the money in his bank to go after the Department of Education. But it's also an issue of Congress, right?
Mhm.
Power of the purse. So yes, the president can do that, but in reality, changing the funding structure, turning that budget into block grants going to each of the 50 states, that's something that can be done by Congress. So
Have you ever thought about running? You'd be fantastic. Why not, man?
Rory.
Bring some new ideas, make a
Well,
difference.
if I'm going to do that, you're going to be my campaign manager. So there
I'm
it
in.
is.
I'm in. Count me in.
You're it. All right. I'll tell my wife that we've got a campaign organization.
Absolutely,
Me and
I'd be happy
Rory.
to help. But have you given it much thought?
I'm shaking my head. No, Rory. Let me just answer it this way. Building of the Statue of Enduring Freedom that's kind of like my life's mission and goal right now. I can't, you have to focus on what it is you're going to do with the years that God gives you here on planet Earth. And let's face it, I'm into my seventh decade, I think, right now. So I'm going to have to just focus on this minor issue of getting a 305-foot statue built on the West Coast to be a companion to Statue of Liberty on the East Coast. And I think that's enough for me to bite off.
And how many books have you written? I imagine a few, right, in your life?
Books. This is the way I can answer that is this is book number 3, but the first 2, one I was an executive director, right, a manager of the book,
right,
and the other one I was a research consultant, the guy in the trenches that does a lot of the work. So those 2 books have been published many years ago that I was directly involved in. And as an author in one of them, yes, I was involved in, they're included in that as along with the list of other authors. But anyway, so 2 books, but indirectly, this book, America's Freedom Megaphone, is my first complete soul project that for good or not, I'm responsible for.
And how is it working with Amazon, having the book up there? I've heard they're not very kind to conservatives like us and libertarians. What's been your experience, though?
Well, I have a few thoughts on that, Rory. Number one, first of all, our publicist, AJ Rice, he's like Mr. Cool, in my opinion.
He's the greatest. He's a superstar. He is the greatest, man. He's on top of everything. There's nobody better. Best in the business.
There you go. And we love AJ totally. We respect his skill set. We respect his passion about America and all things patriotic about America. So anyway,
absolutely,
AJ is on our team to provide publicity for the book. So with that, knowing that, I'm sure that we will succeed. And beyond that, can I just mention a few things as far as our target audience and my personal goals?
Oh yeah, for sure.
There were just, I don't know what, 75 million people that voted for Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential.
Yeah.
That's all, just 75 million. My goal is to at least have 10% of those voters buy my book. That's all. We'll figure out how to do that. We'll find some smart, internet marketing, social media marketing folks to help us reach that goal. But we can do it. We can do it because America needs it. I just believe that. I just believe it. We're getting sick and tired. The millions of us, I coin a phrase in our book. We call it the freedom movement, similar to the Tea Party movement when that happened. Loosely organized group of individuals and organizations that are all singularly focused on returning America to where it was when we started and where we became great.
Right.
And that freedom movement, those individuals, of which there are millions, and I've listed in my book, by the way, probably 50 of those organizations that exist today doing the same thing, trying to move America forward in the same direction that I'm talking about, and in the same direction that the Statue of Enduring Freedom, will shine light on. So those folks eventually will look at my book. They will become I hope they will become champions of being it built, because we are championing the same message that they are championing themselves. And I'm thinking of the wall builder guys, Barton and family down in Texas. And anyway, I've listed a whole bunch of them in my book. So what was your question? I don't remember.
We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we're going to come right back. We're going to come right back.
Time out.
Yep. Stay with us, everybody. Rory Sauter in the news. We'll be right back.
Yeah, you're doing great.
And we are back. Rory Sauter in the news, back with Daniel Bowles. So, Daniel, I'm reading here. You served in the Army. Thank you for your service. I always, give high praise and great gratitude to our veterans. They are the real heroes in this country, fighting for our freedom, safety, and security. Yeah, it says here you're a third-generation Army veteran. You served with NATO in Bavaria, Germany during the ending years of the Vietnam War. Wow. What was that like, though, just being around that environment?
It was eye-opening, Rory. And that was the same time period that I wrote that essay that I referred to for the Freedoms Foundation, that essay writing contest. And mine was called Preservation of America. I guess somebody read it because I got a letter from then President Gerald R. Ford saying, "Hey, thanks, Bowles. You're a wonderful patriot. Hang in there, dude." So, but what was that like? So we're talking in the mid 70s.
Real quick, what was it like when you got that letter? I mean, was that the most surreal experience of your life? Getting an actual letter from the President of the United States? What are the chances? That's like a 1 in a million. It's like, wow, dude, that's like, you probably have that framed. You probably have it somewhere where you look at it every once in a while and you get a big smile on your face and brings back awesome memories.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Right.
Yes, yes, and yes. So yeah, my time there, in the 70s, one big event that happened. So first of all, you need to understand that my basic training group, the 300 of us guys, all of us except 4 of us went to Vietnam, and I was one of the 4. 3 of us went to Germany with NATO, and the other guy was sent to Italy somewhere. So I was thrilled that I didn't have to go to Vietnam, but I spent my time there in Germany, sitting on the Czechoslovakian border. But I will mention this, and this has to do with something. Maybe it has to do with terrorism and but anyway, I was there in southern Germany when in 1972 we had the Summer Olympics in Munich, and that was the year that the Palestinians, terrorists, decided to jump the walls at the Olympic Village, and they killed, they shot up a bunch of athletes and their coaches. It was a horrible, horrible moment. Their terrorist leader at the time.
Daniel, I got to fix something in the settings. We're going to take literally a 20-second break. We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
Stay with us. I'm holding.
Stay with us.
Do something over there.
All right, fixed. As you were saying.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. So you asked me what that was like, my experience in Germany during that time period. So I only had to take my M16 out once with live ammunition. It was during that time when the Palestinian terrorists, led by Yasser Arafat at the time, the PLO leader, when they jumped the fence and killed all of those Israeli athletes and their coaches. It was horrible. It was horrible. And at that time, our base and several others went on full alert, got the ammunition. The instructions were simple. If they don't have the password that they issued, shoot first, and we'll work out the details later. So that was like my closest experience with combat. My MOS was not a combat soldier, like my father. So yeah, it was a good eye-opening experience. I'll just say it that way.
And being over there and not having to go to Vietnam, was that a relief for you? Were you worried that you would be in the middle of that? Because it was not a pleasant situation. It was pretty ugly.
Well, it was, and we can hindsight's always 20/20, and we know what happened in the Vietnam War in the large extent. But specifically with me, I'm glad that I went where I went because I don't know why, but I was apparently a good shot during basic training, and I had this fancy. They offered to send me to sniper school. They also offered to send me.
You could have been the next Chris Kyle. You could have been one of those top snipers, man.
Yeah, and dead too.
No, yes. minus that part, but
there you go. Oh, God.
Right.
Yes. Anyway, so there it is, and that was, like I say, a great eye-opening experience. One of the great things about growing up in America, but then living outside of the United States for multiple years, and I've done that for many years, lived for a long time in Scotland and now Germany here, is you see America from the outside looking in. And that is a completely different perspective, a completely different experience. And I just wish more of our young people could experience that somehow in some way, because it really brings home what America is all about, the American dream, in a way that some of us who grew up here and never go outside of our state boundaries, we don't experience, unfortunately.
Explain the culture difference over there compared to here.
Then
When
or
you
now?
were what?
Then or now?
Over there, like back then, it hasn't changed much, has it, in regards to what their values are? Would you say it's pretty similar? I mean, we've changed quite significantly, but
Well, I can answer that on a political front. First of all, um, you know, a lot of countries in Europe, for whatever reasons, they've embraced socialism, or call it soft socialism. They love they love free health. You know, the government pays for health and tax the heck out of me. I don't care. Just they love those kind of things, and they embraced it then. They embrace it today. And for me, it's a sad thing. I mean, who saved Germany's butt in World War One? Wait, let me look. That's right, it was the United States. Who saved Europe's tail end from World War II and Hitler's hell? Wait, it was America. That's right. When we were coming over as a patriotic democratic country, not a socialist country, we are the ones that stepped up. And yet today they they do this.
is the America as we know it gone for good? Has there been too much damage to bring it back and restore it to what our founding fathers, originated?
My answer to that question, Rory, is a big no, capital N-O, put it in bold and put an exclamation behind it. It's never too late for America, period. And in fact, I think that the societal mess that we are in the middle right now is providing an impetus for people like me, for people like you, and the millions of others in this freedom movement. It's providing the impetus for us to get off of our tails and actually to do things more actively. In my book, I reference the term, the silent majority. This was a term that has been used historically in politics in the United States for a long time. I believe that everything that you're talking about and the crap that's going on in America right now, the frustration that normal, hardworking Americans are feeling, as members of the silent majority, they are becoming silent no more. They're the sleeping giant of the silent majority. We are sleeping no more. And that, I believe, is the beauty of the message and the building of the Statue of Enduring Freedom. The Statue of Enduring Freedom can become a symbol that America will prevail, that our founding principles of liberty and freedom will prevail, and that we will win. We say quite often in the circles that I run in, freedom will prevail, evil will fail. And that's my answer to your question.
What do you think is to blame for us going so far backwards to where we got to, like if you had to give that explanation?
We got lazy.
Entitlement?
We got comfortable. We were focused on family issues, basic issues, getting a job, raising a family, raising your children, all of those key personal patriotic issues. We focused on those and those alone. And as far as politics in our country and the social issues of our country, we were asleep at the wheel. I believe that's how we have migrated to the point that we're at today. We got lazy, but we're lazy no more, Rory. We are lazy no more, period.
And you know what I do notice? And if you look at statistics, if you look at history, if you talk to, older individuals, the work ethic years ago was way stronger, way more disciplined than it is today. You know, so many people in this era want stuff handed to them on a silver platter. They don't want to go out and earn it. Everybody thinks they can just land on home plate and be the CEO. They don't want to start from the ground up. It's a problem.
It is. And it's a problem that can be overcome. And we're becoming, and to overcome that, the first thing you need to do is to become aware of that reality. And we are now aware of that reality. A segue off of that statement, Rory, that you'd be interested in is the magnitude of voices. The magnitude of voices on the liberal big government coalition side is very, very loud. And it's loud for many reasons, and particularly because of the mainstream media, making it so loud. And voices like yours and like mine and all these kind of normal citizens, we have a voice, but it's a very small voice. But the good part is, again, I'm going back to this freedom movement, the millions of Americans that are part of this freedom movement indirectly. They don't even know they're part of it. They just know that something is screwed up. The Statue of Enduring Freedom will become a uniting symbol for all of these individuals like you and your friends, like me and my friends, and the millions and millions of others who are frustrated about the way our society is going to hell. The Statue of Enduring Freedom will become a visual uniting symbol, and hence our voice will become louder and more passionate than the voice that is currently dominating our society, that is taking us down to hell in handbasket.
Yeah, and with the way things have gone politically, do you have any faith in our elected officials moving forward? I mean, 98% of them just seem like such a waste. They seem so useless. Even people in our own party, a lot of them are so useless. Like, they're good for nothing. And it really disgusts me. We elect these people to go work for us, and in reality, they work for themselves and enrich their bank accounts, and they give us the finger.
I believe that's going to change as well. That migration, that change that you're talking about is going to begin. And I think that migration has already begun as far as politicians. And that will happen, again, through the monument's ongoing educational outreach message and what we will be doing as far as teaching. And what I'm getting at is, when the founding fathers set up America, they never envisioned that government officials, that politics would be a career. Never. They said, go into Washington and do your thing, or go into your state, capital, and do something for a few years, and then return and continue your career. Be a statesman, the term they used. What's happened is we have morphed. It's kind of like when you read Machiavelli's The Prince. We have morphed to mankind's weaker side that says, I'm going to go for everything that I can get personally, and to heck with everybody else, including politics. You will notice that many politicians today, and this is why you have the frustration you just talked about, they actually believe that being a politician is a career path. It's a career choice. And they actually honor themselves if they can stay in office until they're 90 years old. They think that's a good thing. And you and I and millions like us know that is wrong. And that is going to be changing. We are now beginning to elect individuals who are going to Washington who know that that's wrong, that a career politician, That is the wrong mindset. That is a mindset that pollutes America. And we're getting more and more of those individuals every day. And I salute every one of them. And that's just the way I feel.
Do you think we'll ever get term limits, or do you think that's wishful thinking, fantasy land?
It's not wishful thinking and it's not fantasy land. It's something that very much can and will happen. There's an organization that has that as their purpose in life. I'm a member of it. And the great one, Mark Levin, he's one of the chief champions of that whole movement to have a constitutional convention. Their main objective is to do just that, creating term limits for the other houses of our country. And and how can that happen? Well, first of all, what I'm going to say, this is never taught. This is not taught. And I taught history and civics, in high school.
Yeah.
This that I'm going to say is not taught, but it's the facts. When George Washington was our first, founding father, wonderful person, and the first president, he and every president since him had a gentleman's agreement that went like this: we'll serve 2 terms as president and then we will go home. But it was a gentleman's agreement up until who? Answer, up until FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, screw that. I'm wonderful. America needs me. He was elected to a 3rd term. And then he was also elected to a 4th term. And at that point, Congress smartly said, wait a minute, time out. This is wrong. This is how tyrants and dictators take over. They want to be in charge forever. They created an amendment. I think it's the 14th. I should know that. But anyway, they created an amendment that at that point put term limits on the office of president. 2 years. That's how that happened. But it happened because he went rogue and threw in the face of all those previous presidents in America before him of a gentleman's agreement of 2 years. Two terms. And so it was done then for the executive branch. Okay, we did that. And we can do the same thing for the legislative branch as well. Absolutely. Needs to be done. And there's an organization working to make that happen.
And we've seen continuously a few different elected officials put it on the floor, and it never passes.
Well, it doesn't. And there are reasons for that. It's called, self-interest and all those other bad things. Like, I want to be a career politician and get out of my face. But there's another avenue to make that happen. And that's the avenue that this organization that Mark Levin's involved in, as I am, to use a constitutional convention to take care of that.
And it says after you were a teacher, you invented a stereo electronics product and had it marketed on national television. Wow, man. In the 80s, 1988.
Was that me?
Wow. Talk about that. What was that like?
So yes, Rory, it's true. I left the teaching profession after 5 years and decided to follow my entrepreneurial business itchings, as it were. I went to night school, got an MBA, and then I got this idea to create a product. And the product was a result of my having written some children's stories. And the thought process brought me to this product called Pillophonics. And long story, we eventually got it marketed on national television through the QVC, National Shopping Network, whatever it is today. And it was cool. We sold out when we got on national TV. We sold out the entire inventory remaining that we had in like 4.5 minutes. So boom, the product was massively successful. But then I failed at finding investors to, invest more money in it so we could make more product and market, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when it ended. But it was a cool product. It could come back someday. Anyway,
What's it like launching a product back then compared to now? Explain the difference. Because back then, yeah, talk about night and day. Go ahead.
I love your reference. Back then, oh my gosh. And that's true, Rory. It's true. Back then it was different. I love what's happening today. Let me just say it that way. I love what's happening today in regards to the social media marketing platform. I just love what is able to happen today for all sorts of people that do not have a multi-million-dollar backing to promote a product through social media marketing and sell that product and become successful. I just think that is the most wonderful technological advancement ever, because it allows young people like yourself and those others that we know of that are quote unquote normal people to develop and market a product and become successful without all the infrastructure crap that I had to go through in the 80s. So I'm a fan.
Oh, yeah, it's fascinating, and all the different resources and all the different outlets and all the different options we have. And I work in technology. I've been building apps for about 10 years. So it's a fascinating realm, so evolved. I always tell people, the technology and these apps, it's the closest thing to magic. It's a few click of a buttons and you're at your destination. You can do anything with this phone, these smartphones. And, with this show, I have 2 media networks now that I built and launched, and we have different shows on there, and it's a lot of fun. And independent media is the new way. It's the way we can really get our message out there, utilize our voice, really speak to the masses. And there's no agenda. It's all authentic. What you see is what you get. The mainstream media, that's the problem with them, is they are so controlled. It's so phony. It's like Hollywood. You're not getting the real deal. And people being able to, brand, use this for branding and really expanding their businesses. I mean, it's so many great things that podcasting and these shows are good for, and having great interviews and great conversations like we are.
Absolutely, 100%. And the way I see everything that you've just talked about is an application of individual freedom and democracy that exists in America. It allows individuals like you and all of your friends and even guys like me to reach millions. And by doing that, we are able to become successful or not. We can fail also. But the point is, there is not a huge big government coalition that we have to dance to. We dance to our own drummer. And that exists in a constitutional free market economy. And this is why I'm positive about American, what the hell we're going through right now, societal wise. This is why I'm positive that we will get out of it and we will be the better for it, because individual freedom not only is important for us, in our heart, but we are experiencing it through this social media, social technological world that you live in. We're experiencing that right as individuals. It's wonderful. And the reason that the big media boys don't like it, the reason that, some of the old school people bemoan the old days, like, oh, we wish that we could have Walter Cronkite telling us how to think and when to think. They miss those days because that was big government control. They control the message. And today, no one controls the message. Individuals can produce and promote their own message. And that is individual freedom and liberty on steroids. And it's wonderful.
Did you ever think back in the day that it would be this evolved in 2024 within the technology realm? Did you ever think it would be this advanced? And
no, and the answer to that question is an analogy, and it's one with my grandmother. Mother had when she was a young girl. She told us that she watched the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, take off in their first little airplane. Okay, as a young girl, and guess what? As an old lady, before she died, she saw freaking Armstrong land on the moon. So what a life's experience and lifespan to see that kind of change happen in aerospace. Okay, from the Wright brothers to going to the moon, she saw that in one lifetime.
Right.
And so I use that as an analogy to answer your question. No, I've never experienced it. I'm happy that it's here. Absolutely happy.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And it says right here, you've consulted for private companies, educational organizations, and nonprofit foundations. Man, you're a busy guy.
Yeah. Well, talk to my wife if you want the backstory on all of that.
Fun, good time. So how long have you been doing the consulting stuff for?
I started my own company in '87.
Wow.
Had various clients, big ones and small, big ones and small ones since then. And of course, the client now that I'm working for is my own company, Freedom Alliance LLC. So we've gone the gamut. I've played the corporate role for quite a while. I was in executive sales for quite a while, and I guess I've been around the block.
And what's some of your biggest clients? What do you most?
Well, I don't want to give them any free advertising, but I will say that I was in the publishing industry for quite a while.
Oh, wow. You've done it all, man. Jack of all trades.
Well, you know the end of that saying, jack of all trades and master of none. Oh, no, not me.
So you were in the publishing industry. Carry on. Continue.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that was one of the corporate worlds corporate venues that I was in. I loved it, to be honest. I was in both printing, designing, and marketing. We established new clients around. I was flying around the country, setting up and pitching, companies, organizations to become clients of ours. And we did a lot of printing stuff, magazines and newsprint products. So there it is.
Competitive business, right?
Very competitive. I could say cutthroat, but yeah, we experienced, the whole gamut. I mean, let's face it, Rory, you know this. In life, there are honorable people that you get to work with. And in the process, you run into a lot of unhonorable, dishonorable individuals and corporations. So over the years, you experience both and ups and downs, right? Sometimes you get burned by those nasty ones, and other times you have just a real fulfilling experience working with those who are honorable. One of them was, in my opinion, Stephen R. Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. In my opinion, he was one of the honorable ones that did a lot of good in the world.
Did you have a couple bad experiences that didn't sit well with you?
I had a couple bad experiences that not only did they not sit well, but they messed me up financially as well. Jeez. So we'll just leave it at that. I like to focus on the honorable individuals that I was able to rub shoulders with.
And I want to ask you, you're the founder and writing force behind autotipguru.com. Explain that to the audience.
Well, so all of us have different hobbies and interests, and I'll just admit it. One of mine is automobiles and motorcycles.
Nice.
I like to go fast, and with cars.
Me too, man. Hell yeah.
I'll just
the faster the better.
And you admit it, faster the better. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, going fast.
I'm not all about that motto, slow and steady wins the race. No, the faster the better, baby.
All right. Yes. One of my highlights, one of my top 10 best days in my entire life was spending a week at the Indy 500.
Wow.
Oh, God, yeah. Another one, meeting Mario Andretti and having him sign my motorcycle helmet. I mean, it's on and on. I'm a car guy. I admit it. And because I like to write, I write for AutoTip Guru. It's my company. I write a monthly column for consumer automotive readers. And I do that and whatever.
No. Dude, so how long have you had this in place for?
Oh my gosh, I don't know, 15 years now. I'd have to check my files, but it's been a while. But I'm also on the car.
My dog's chewing on the The curtain.
So you got to do take your dog through some dog obedience classes, man. He's getting a little out of control.
Yeah, she's a handful. She's 9 months. She's a puppy.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. But the whole auto industry. Where do you think it's going? Are you nervous that with the way prices are, with the way interest rates are, they're not selling as many cars? There's a lot of reports that are not good in the auto market.
That's exactly right. And in my opinion, they deserve every downturn that they get, they meaning the industry themselves. I was just talking to a Lexus dealer last week, looking at some of the machines they had on their sales room floor. And I asked the salesman, why is this model so much less expensive than this model right on the same sales floor? And he said, well, that's simple, Bowles. This one that's cheaper does not have all the high-tech improvements that this model has, and therefore this model is $15,000 more. And I shook my head and I said, well, for a lot of car consumers, we just see a car as a piece of metal to get us from point A to point B. That's it. And this business, and then I asked him a question. I said, do you ever foresee, as a salesman, do you ever foresee a time when me as a consumer can come into your showroom and say, hi, I'd like this car, but I want the no tech version, no tech instead of, and low tech versus the high tech stuff of all the computer chips and hundreds of them that are in this vehicle. Can I get a low tech or no tech vehicle? And he smiled and he said, Bowles, we have a lot of people that complain about the influx and increase of high tech in vehicles. They don't like it, and et cetera, et cetera. And so that's my 2 cents worth on the auto industry. I could go into more details, but whatever.
A lot of people think there'll be a collapse economically, including myself. I think things are going to be worse than the Great Depression. This is the place I don't have optimism. This is the place where I think there's going to be a lot of chaos, the economy, just because of all the buildup, everything we've been experiencing, all the inflation, all the endless printing of money, the raising of the debt, and they don't stop. A lot of bankruptcies, a record number of credit card debt now, over $1 trillion. I mean, I could just go on and on all the indicators. But anyways, when this all does hit the fan, do you see the auto industry suffering more than 2008? Because they suffered like hell. But at the same time, they did get bailed out, which was a big thing. I can imagine the bailouts are probably going to come again.
I hope.
And look at all like you were pointing something out that was very on point. They make a lot of reckless decisions, and then they make these reckless decisions, and then they get bailed out with taxpayer dollars. It's kind of sick.
Those times have to end. Those times simply have to end, or their industries will completely fail, and they'll have to start from scratch. This business, again, another reason I make the case in my book, America's Freedom Megaphone, to be found at freedomalliancellc.com.
Love it.
I'm being told I have to pitch my book, so there it is. But where was I on that? I'm sure it was something salient. Well, the car industry, yes, and bailing out.
Yeah.
That is an example of the big government coalition usurping, in this case, corporate America, the free constitutional economic issues that we have going on in America. It was a failure. It was wrong. And I think there are individuals that realize, including politicians, realize that it was wrong and that none of that can happen anymore, period. So I guess to answer your question, I'm hopeful, even though I agree with the list that you mentioned. That's quite a list. It's pretty dire. One way or another, the American economy will come through. We'll have, Band-Aids on our forehead, and we'll have, ace bandages around our knees. We will be beat up, absolutely, but I do believe that in the end we will prevail.
What do you think of what do you think of China now? It was just announced on the news, breaking yesterday. They are now the leader in exporting cars in the world.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't. I do believe, though, that that will not. I believe that's a blip in the historical timeline. Why do I say that? I say that because of, again, history. Look what happened to the economy in the USSR. Why did communist Russia fail? They failed because they couldn't feed their own people. They put all of their money into, in their case, into defense, and they couldn't feed their own people, and their economy, their country imploded.
Right.
China, who is China? China is the Soviet Union of today, meaning they are a huge communist-run, one-party country, and they will fail just like the Soviet Union long-term will fail. That form of government, now you're getting into my political side of my life, is not sustainable. Communism is not sustainable. Look at, anyway, I don't want to get into all that political stuff, but China, yeah, that's a positive blip on the historical map for them, and it will not continue, period.
And the war on free speech is a big thing right now in our country. And that all factors into freedom. What do you make of that? I mean, it's probably the worst it's ever been, with everybody getting censored, people in certain cases going to jail.
In many cases, right?
Yeah. Over in certain countries now, they're penalizing people for misgendering. It goes on and on. The war on free, you can't say, how you feel. You can't, offend any groups. You pretty much just have to be a good little puppy dog.
Rory, the answer to that observation, which is very astute on your part, I will say that, the answer to that observation is found in George Orwell's 1984 novel, and also by Huxley's A Brave New World. The answer to everything that you just said about controlling speech and manipulating and this and that and everything, the answers to all of those questions are found in those two books from those two authors. Again, they have no future in the history of mankind. Yes, they're controlling, or they're influencing a lot of society right now. That's true. But again, I'm going back to our silent majority. The 75 million that voted for President Trump, and many other millions who kind of would like to have, but they didn't have enough guts to. Those people are not sleeping anymore. They're not in hibernation anymore, Rory. And when that happens, when they start yelling, when they unite around the building of the Statue of Enduring Freedom, that message, that voice will be so loud and instill so much courage in normal Americans and patriots all over, that voice will be, it will be loud. It will be, the decibels will just be breaking your eardrums. It will be so loud. And that is the loudness and the yelling for individual freedom, period. And that is the message that will prevail. There it is.
No, I hear you. And have you paid much attention to what the World Economic Forum has in place, the plans and what they're trying to implement into society and how they're trying to control?
And the answer is yes. That's on page 76 through 81 in my book, America's Freedom Megaphone. Charles Schwab and all of the folks at Davos, when they get together every year, the World Economic Forum that you're discussing, asking about, they are the epitome. They are the poster child of the big government coalition. Absolutely. They are hell-bent on one thing. What is that? Central control. Absolutely. They want to control society. They want to control the economic activity of everyone. And that concept of central control, I quote several immigrants who came from communist countries, Soviet Union included. The concept of central control does not work. And of course, that's what Schwab and the World Economic Forum guys, that's what they're all about. They say it, yeah. You will own nothing, no individual ownership, and you'll be happy. You will do this and this and this according to their designs. And shame on them, but individual freedom and liberty will trump that message every day.
Well said. Well said. Biggest takeaway you want people to get from this book?
Okay, I love takeaways. Amazon is selling my book, America's Freedom Megaphone. Go out and buy 1,000 of them, buy 10,000. My goal, I told you, is 10% of the 75 million people that voted for President Trump. 10% of 75 million, what is that? I don't know. Do the math. It's a big number. That's my takeaway. The beginning of building the Statue of Enduring Freedom is buying my book, embracing its message, and joining our freedom movement around the country and helping to make that happen. I guess that's my takeaway. Can I pitch my book? Is that all right?
Absolutely. And tell everybody where they can find it too. And find
where they can find it. Thanks for asking. Yep. So go to our website, freedomalliancellc.com. Again, freedomalliancellc.com. And there you go.
Perfect. Well, Daniel, it's been a pleasure. We will talk to you very soon. Keep up the good work. I could talk to you all day, man. It's been fun. I got to get to my next guest, though. Take a quick break. But have a great weekend, and God bless you, man.
Thank you, Rory. Appreciate it. You're the man.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay with us. And we are back. Rory Sauter and the news coming to you live. I do want to introduce our next guest. I believe he's with us right now. We have Daniel Street with us. Daniel,
How do you do?
can you hear me?
Yes.
What's going on? Good to have you on. Your first time here. It's a pleasure. First and foremost, give us a bio, a background. You've had quite the life.
Well, I'm a lawyer, and really that's mainly what I do. I practiced law for 27 years, and also write. I'm an author, a legal analyst. I have a Substack where I keep up with current events or write about current events and things. And more than anything, I'm a practicing attorney. So I practice every day, just about every day of the week, all year long.
Very cool, man. Good stuff. And what kind of law do you primarily focus on?
I handle mostly personal injury claims in state and federal court. So I handle product liability cases, workers' comp, auto accidents, things of that nature. And I do some administrative work, but that's a much smaller percentage of my practice.
I imagine you get quite a few clients, right? Those injury scenarios, it happens often.
Yeah, in fact, I would say that I don't have enough. We can never have too many.
Right. And give us kind of a breakdown and kind of just how it all works going through these court proceedings with these, injury suits. And I know it can take a long time.
Yeah, well, 90% of them settle, probably a little higher than 90% of the claims settle. So mostly it's, building the claim up, working the claim up, and then resolving it is really what we do the vast majority of the time. They call us trial lawyers, but we try one out of every 40. Yeah.
And what is the reason it's 90% of the time they're settled outside of court? Mainly because of costs, would you say? They don't want to use all the money on court fees and spending money on lawyer fees. And it's a drag, right?
Yeah, no, actually, I think that the reason most claims settle is because the parties during the course of the claim narrow the issues down to what's in dispute. And when you get to where you're not that far apart, you usually just resolve it. So that's my perception of why most claims settle.
Do those trials get pretty ugly, man? Like when you get to that point, does it get pretty intense?
Yeah, they can. The vast majority of the time, lawyers tend to be very professional to one another. And most of the time, I would say of all the cases I've tried in my 27 years, it got really, really contentious. Maybe I can count on two hands the number of times where we're the kind of thing where I said, I'm going to let that guy leave the courtroom before me so we don't bump into each other in the parking lot. It just doesn't happen very often.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. And you're out of Louisiana.
Monroe, Louisiana.
Very nice. How far is that from New Orleans?
As far as you can get and still be in Louisiana. I'm 30 miles south of the Arkansas line.
Oh, okay.
You just about couldn't position yourself to be farther away from New Orleans.
So you're closer to the capital, it sounds like.
I am. Well, I'm closer to the capital than New Orleans because Baton Rouge is about 80 miles north, kind of northwest of New Orleans. So,
Gotcha. And the laws in those states, aren't they a little, more severe and have harsher consequences than others?
Well, in Louisiana, I would say that that's probably not the case with respect to the work that I do. Now, on the criminal side of litigation, I would say, Louisiana probably has harsher sentencing and harsher sentence enhancements and things than a lot of other states do. I haven't done a survey of that nationwide, but we're generally known as a place that will kind of drop the hammer on a criminal defendant.
Yeah, it's I was down in New Orleans a couple of years ago. I like it down there, man. Louisiana culture, people are friendly, people are, it's cool. It's different. And that's what I love about this country is you go to different states and it's almost like it's the way they do things. It's cool to be around all these different traditions, all these different values, all these different cultures, because you'll be in a different state and then you'll go to somewhere else and it'll be totally opposite how they go about their daily life, the curriculum. And I just think it's cool.
Well, I agree with you. I think I've traveled all over the country.
Yeah.
And there's always there's parts of America I haven't been to. It's a beautiful country, a lot of wonderful people. New Orleans is the kind of place I always tell people, you need to be careful when you're down there, but bring your wallet because you're going to need it.
Right.
And don't worry about your diet and don't worry about your waistline because
right.
you're gonna blow a diet and your waistline is gonna get bigger. That's just all there is to it.
Absolutely. What's your favorite Louisiana dish? I'm sure you have too many to name, but if you had to give like one.
Absolutely. My stepdad is from down in South Louisiana, and he makes the best chicken and sausage jambalaya. It's sausage and chicken, and it's just absolutely incredible. It's got Boston butt in it, a bunch of other things, but it is just incredible. And I try to do it. I've got the recipe, although I always accuse him of holding out on me because mine never turns out as good as his does.
Nice, man. Good stuff. And in regards to the governor, you guys just got a new governor not too long ago, right? I thought for a Democrat, I've never voted Democrat in my life, but for a Democrat, I thought Edwards was somewhat decent. I mean, he was moderate. I would say he's a reasonable type of Democrat compared to what they've become today, how radical they are. But obviously, obviously, there's a lot about Edwards I don't agree with. But what are your thoughts on the new guy that came in?
Well, our new governor is Jeff Landry. He was the attorney general previously.
Right.
And I will tell you, he literally just took office this week. There's a lot of high expectations for Jeff Landry. What I would like for your audience to understand is that Jeff Landry is one of the people who brought the lawsuit called Missouri versus Biden that's actually pending. It was originally pending anyway in the Western District of Louisiana, the United States District Court for the Western District of Louisiana in the Monroe Division in front of our local federal judge. And that's the case about the federal government censorship of American citizens and their collusion with various different private entities to get people banned off of Twitter and shut down free speech. And Jeff Landry was one of the masterminds behind that lawsuit challenging the government's effort, the federal government's effort to stymie the free speech of Americans. So I can tell you that Jeff Landry walks the walk, he talks the talk, and he believes in conservative principles. He believes in free speech. He believes in the right to bear arms, and he is legitimate, without a doubt, conservative. So we've got good expectations and high expectations that we can turn a few things around that need to be turned around.
And doesn't the war on free speech drive you nuts? How they want to censor our voice. They don't want us to speak the truth. They're threatened by us. Because anytime you censor, anytime you try to silence somebody, that's out of fear. They know when somebody has the power to get the truth out there and speak their voice, that's dangerous. That's dangerous for the elites.
Absolutely. And look, what I explained to people about Missouri versus Biden, and I've actually written in my Substack about the case, but there's some other people really following it very closely. But what's just, to me, just absolutely shocking, just stunning about it is what they uncovered during the discovery phase of this lawsuit is that the Federal Bureau of Investigation had a team of people working on all of this. And part of that team, a little sub part of that team, was working to get the president of the United States at that time, Donald J. Trump, banned from social media. They were unsuccessful for a very long time and had Twitter and other social media outlets telling them, no, that's not a violation of our terms of service. So the United States government and the federal law enforcement, whose boss was President Trump, he was the head honcho in the executive branch, they were actively undermining him in an election season to try to get his voice silenced on social media. And when the truth came out about it, you would think that the FBI director, I don't know what he knew personally, what his personal level of knowledge was about all of this, but any decent person leading the FBI when this came out there'd be heads rolling. And what does he do? Just shrugs and says, "Oh well," and so that's what we're up against. These people not just try to censor you and me; they try to censor their boss and the president of the United States illegitimately.
Yeah, and think about that for a second. The people at the highest level of government abusing their power in the worst type of way. I mean, these are people that we count on to keep us safe. And what they're doing is they're coming after us. They're not going after the enemy. They're coming after us innocent civilians.
Yeah, and look, the worst part about it is the lack of accountability.
Right.
When the truth came out, the FBI posted on its Twitter page, or its X. It's X now. I got to get that in my head.
Yeah, I still call it Twitter, man. I still say Twitter. It'll always be Twitter to me. It feels weird to me saying X. It sounds like a porn site. Like it just, yeah. Like I feel like Twitter is like what most people still say. I don't really know many people. I don't know many people that call it X because they're so used to just saying Twitter. And
the FBI came out on its Twitter page and said this was all a conspiracy. I mean, it's not a conspiracy. It's been proven in court, been found by the court to be a fact. It's not a conspiracy anymore. And, the good news, there is good news, and I always try to be positive, is there are a lot of people working to put a stop to this. There's light shining on it that was never shown on it before. And the case wound up in front of a federal judge who believes in the First Amendment and believes in the rule of law and is just flabbergasted, I'm sure, at what the government did. And he's worked active, he got into the case and ordered them to stop, granted an injunction. It's all the way at the Supreme Court now. But, so it's comforting to know that there are people on the federal bench who care about this, who want it to stop. And the U.S. Fifth Circuit affirmed it, and now it's at the Supreme Court. So it's hopefully the Supreme Court will affirm the lower court's decision, and this will end.
And speaking of censorship, does it make you sick to your stomach how much power and how exempt big tech is? Look at everything they're getting away with. Look at all the lawsuits, and it just seems like they always win. If anybody tries to throw anything at them, they're untouchable. They control the world. That's why people refer to them as masters of the universe.
They do just about always win. And the important thing, the secret to social media's ability to evade responsibility for the things they do is Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act. So if you don't mind, if I could address that real quick, what happened was, ordinarily, if you had a platform and you allowed me on it and I defamed people, made defamatory statements and libelous statements about people, you would be responsible for that because you're the person who promoted it and published it. So I might be a writer for a paper, but if that paper publishes that defamatory libelous statement, the paper's liable for it. So the reason social media companies aren't liable for all the, if you're on social media, you know how much libelous and slanderous and defamatory statements are made. The reason they're not liable for it is because of Section 230. Otherwise, they would have to not moderate. All right. So if I put a bulletin board up and I say anybody can put up anything they want, I'm not liable for a defamatory statement or a libelous statement someone makes. But if I control the substance and the content, then I am. Section 230 removes that liability for social media companies. They can strangle the information. They can control the information. They can suppress information and promote whatever they want and have no liability whenever somebody defames someone because of Section 230. So the key to reining them in is to do away with it. And there's a move to do that. It's just going to take a lot more grassroots organizing, a lot more people really raising their voices about the issue.
And look at how they can skew the algorithms and really mess with that area. It's constant. The elections, they do it. COVID, they did it.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that's as evil as it gets. I mean, that's the ultimate betrayal. Not giving people full transparency, total agenda.
I always say about speeches, this is very simple. If someone's wrong about something,
Mhm.
if someone's position is untenable and it has no support, it has no basis, and they're wrong, then those are the people that need to talk.
Right.
Let them say whatever, and not let them, but they should be able to say whatever it is they want to say, because if I'm right, if I have the truth and I have the facts and I have the evidence on my side, then I'm going to debunk, refute, and dispel whatever their misinformation is. It's only people who want to stop someone from talking generally do that because they can't refute what the person has to say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, we're seeing overseas, they're putting people in jail for misgendering, uh, for saying things about the government. That's coming to the US. We just saw a guy go to jail over memes with the Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
2016 scenario. I don't know if you followed that, but he did go to jail. Tucker Carlson interviewed him.
Douglas Mackey.
Oh, is that the kid? Is that the kid's name?
That's his name. Then you got the guy, the Rebel TV reporter in Canada, got beat up and arrested last week for asking questions.
Right.
Asking questions of
Right.
government representatives who didn't want to be asked any questions. So no, this is not the free speech is under attack throughout the world. The difference is that most places don't have a Bill of Rights, and most places on earth don't have a First Amendment. So there, we have rights as Americans that a lot of other people don't, and that's one of them. And you'll see, like you mentioned, in England, where people, if they say the wrong thing about the government, and the wrong thing about a prosecution, the wrong thing about a person's gender, or the wrong thing about a person's origin, they can literally go to jail. And there's illustration after illustration of that. And that's why the First Amendment is so important, because that can't be done to us legally.
Right. Yeah, and I do wonder, if we don't stop this, how out of hand will it get? Are people going to be going to prison for years and years for posting memes and having opinions?
Yeah.
Because the New World Order, the elites, if they had their way, this is what would happen.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the thing that we need to be vigilant about in this regard is the new left today does not believe in free speech.
No.
You may remember earlier, last year at a U.S. Senate hearing, I think it was Josh Hawley from Missouri, but it may have been Tom Cotton from Arkansas, but I think it was Hawley. Senator Hawley asked a California Berkeley law professor who was testifying about some women's rights issue, and he asked her, do women get pregnant? And she said that statement was violence towards transgender women. I think I get confused as to which one, a man who's trying to be a woman and one. I don't remember which one's which. But
right
now,
it's too much math. It's hard to keep up,
And if you take somebody like that extremist person who's a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and you put her on the federal court, do you think she would have one qualm at all about shutting someone's right or ability to make that statement that women get pregnant? Right? Mm-hmm. No, because if it's violence, it's not protected speech. You see? So these people will just make everything violent, and now you can't talk unless you say what they agree with.
And you bring up, the Supreme Court, and you brought up, this whole transgender stuff, and it factors into political correctness. And now we're hiring people based on their skin color, based on their orientation, based on their sexual preference. We're not even hiring people based on merit anymore. And that scares me. And the Supreme Court is an example. The only reason Ketanji Brown Jackson, whatever her name was, got appointed and picked was because she was Black. And that's what that's all the media could talk about. That's all they could, glow over. That's all you heard. You didn't hear about, qualifications. You didn't hear about her skill set. You didn't hear about her resume. All you heard was she's Black. She's Black. And there are so many examples, like I said, of people getting hired just for that reason. And for other reasons, being transgender, being a lesbian, being gay, it's like, what has happened?
Well, and then you had the president of the United States, Joe Biden, publicly stating that when he got the opportunity to nominate someone for the Supreme Court, he was going to nominate a person, he said, of color.
Right.
He's going to nominate a non-white person. And, that's his prerogative. Obviously, he's president, whether he got there legitimately or not. And, but I just think it's a terrible, terrible message to send for a variety of reasons, because what we're supposed to be trying to do is to have this colorblind society. You've seen the images of Lady Justice, and she has the blindfold and she can't see what anybody looks like, and that's the whole point behind that. And when the president comes out and says, hey, the next opening there is on the highest court in the land, I'm only going to consider people who are a certain race or a certain gender or whatever. I mean, I just can't imagine that why, even if he wanted to do that, he didn't have to publicly make that kind of proclamation. I don't understand the whole mentality. To me, it makes no sense. And but I can say that about a lot of things that's happening today.
Yeah. And while we're talking about, people's rights being violated and freedom and all this stuff, January 6th, the anniversary was last Saturday. As a lawyer, what do you make of this whole situation?
January 6th?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by observing that it was not an insurrection.
No.
Not by any definition. Not by any definition existing in law, not as a practical matter, not as a definition if you pick up Webster's dictionary. The other important point about that is there's been over 1,000 people charged by the United States Department of Justice for some conduct of some kind that occurred on January 6th. Not one of those people, it's a bold statement, but it's true, not one, not the Oath Keepers, and least of all President Trump. None of them have been charged under the federal insurrection statute. That's 18 U.S.C. 2383. The closest they got to that is the Oath Keepers, who were charged under the seditious conspiracy statute. But they weren't charged under the seditious conspiracy for conspiring to overthrow the government. They were charged for conspiring to obstruct the certification of the election. Okay, so it's not an insurrection. It wasn't an insurrection. I'll tell you what it was. It was a riot. It was a riot that, once all the truth comes out, we will learn was facilitated. Well, we already know this to a point. It was facilitated by law enforcement. It was primarily under the control of Nancy Pelosi, who was the majority leader in the United States House of Representatives at the time, and the mayor of Washington, D.C. And we know that there are a lot of undercover federal assets, undercover local law enforcement, and a lot of Antifa agitators. So by the time, when all the light of truth gets shined on all of it, we'll find that the vast majority of the nastiness and the things that most people, including me, find disagreeable about what happened on January 6th were instigated by agent provocateurs. So that's how I feel about January 6th. And I'll point out that back at that time, I had friends and some family members and things that were wanting to go because they wanted to protest what a lot of people, I think a majority of people probably, view as an illegitimate election. And I told them all, don't go, because that crowd's going to be riddled with feds, And the Democrats are they're up to something because there's going to be a historic objection to the certification of the election at that joint session of Congress where the House and Senate meet to certify. And if you take out that interruption, where the Capitol had to be evacuated, prior to that, we would have had twice as many objections, maybe even more, because Senator Marsha Blackburn, Senator David Perdue, Senator Kelly Loeffler, just to name a few, changed their vote after the Capitol was evacuated.
Did you see the DOJ came out last week, and it's been over 3 years since this happened, and they said they're still tracking people down, interviewing people, and want people to pay a price who were just attending the event that day, people that were just there on the grounds, that didn't even go into the Capitol.
I did see that, and and they're going to charge it. It's a disingenuous expansion of the disorderly conduct statute in Washington. So I really, the Supreme Court, some of those cases are headed up to the higher courts now. Hopefully they'll rein that in and put an end to it. Rory, I got to tell you, I appreciate you having me on. I know we had some technical issues on my end. I'm sorry about that. I have another call I need to take here in a minute.
Oh, okay, you got about 5 minutes?
Yeah, no, actually, it's right now.
You do? Okay, real quick though, before you do go, promote your book real quick.
Yeah, okay. So I've got 4 books. I've got 3 that are about fake news exposed about Trump. The most recent book, which by the way, let me tell your audience, you can get my most recent book, which is fake news about conservatives, immigration, COVID. I got a couple of chapters about fake news that's been directed at Governor DeSantis. They can get that at my website, both the digital version and the audiobook for free. So if my website is danielrstreet.com, but you can get my Substack, which is free copy of my newest book at danielrstreet.com. And there's links to my social media and to the books at Amazon.
Perfect. And you're on Substack, and you write quite a bit too. You write a lot of articles?
I do. Yeah, I write about, the good thing about Substack is you can write about things that are as they're happening. Whereas when you publish a book, a lot of times by the time the book is published, it's not as timely as you would like. So I use the Substack to weigh in on fake news and a lot of just legal analysis and things in kind of almost real time, so to speak.
Yeah, and Daniel, coming up this year, what are the 3 big headlines that you're focusing the most on?
Right now, I'm focused mostly on the lawfare being waged against President Trump. So the effort to get him off the ballot is probably the number one thing that I've been focused on the last few weeks. Then number 2 is going to be what's going to happen with the DC prosecution. And then the third thing, I think the Florida prosecution I'm not so worried about, but the third thing that I'm focusing on is election integrity. And so I've got some articles that I'm working on that I'm going to roll out as the year progresses and the election gets closer about what I call the Democrat fraud machine and what they're going to try to do to steal the election this time.
Speaking of the Democrat fraud machine, do you think Hunter Biden will pay a price? And what did you make of his little appearance on Capitol Hill?
Yeah, Hunter is probably going to wind up being convicted of something, but I would expect his father, these are all federal charges, I would expect his father to pardon him. So I think ultimately he'll have no consequences, really.
And I got to ask you this, Fauci, did you see the little elf on Capitol Hill on Monday? Every other answer was, I don't recall. I don't recall. Sickening.
Yeah, well, he was obviously coached to stay out of perjury traps. So
right. Sorry.
No, that's good.
No, and he also said he admitted to lying about the social distancing. He said that was all along a false narrative.
Yeah, it was just made up. It was made up. I actually wrote an article about that. Yeah, it's just made up. In Europe, it was 3 feet. In the U.S., it was 6 feet. It was all made up.
And the war on the vaccines, man. I mean, this is the biggest crime against humanity I think we've ever faced.
I'm telling you. And I tell you, my new book has over, it's 10 chapters about COVID misinformation, just about anything that the American people have been told about COVID, about the vaccines, about remedies, about things that work, don't work, all misinformation. It's one of the great misinformation campaigns in the history of history, and it was run worldwide.
Don't you agree there'll be more lockdowns because 70% complied?
Well, I'm going to disagree with that. And I think because I know a lot of people who are just not going to do it again. They're just not going to do it. I know I'm not doing it again. And so I think there's going to be some civil disobedience if there's another lockdown.
Right. No, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. And again, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get involved, all that good stuff.
DanielRstreet.com. DanielRstreet.com. That's my website. There's links to everything I'm doing. And I would really like people to follow my Substack. It's DanielRstreet.substack.com. It's free. And I'm working on that to, if I can build, I really want to get that built up because I'm able to be timely about the things that are going on right now. And I would really like to have the opportunity to come back where I'm not so crunched on time because of the technical problem.
No, absolutely. And to conclude, last thing I want to ask you before you take off, Jeffrey Epstein and the files that were released. Any thoughts to that? Did you look into that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are listed on there who really weren't up to no good. I just don't see Oprah Winfrey doing anything really, but the people who went 15, 20 times, they're the ones we really need to have the microscope put on. But look, that guy's gone for a reason, and that's so a lot of people aren't held to account. And I don't have a whole lot of confidence that anything's going to happen on that.
Do you actually think he's dead? Are you convinced?
Yeah, he's dead.
Do you think he killed himself?
No, he didn't kill himself.
Who, if you had to give a guess, who do you think did it?
Oh, wow. I think he was probably off on the efforts of an amorphous group of powerful people throughout the world. I don't think it would be one person. I think it was like a cabal. That guy had a lot of people by the short hairs, and they solved that problem.
No, absolutely. And Daniel, I got to ask you this too before you go real quick. Thoughts on the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab? And there's all these new reports out that they're trying to really do horrible things.
Yeah. Well, I don't have an inside track on a lot of what they're doing, but I do know that a significant aim of the World Economic Forum and its partners is to reduce the human population of the planet Earth.
Yeah.
And the only question is, what means will they go to do that? I can't answer that, except I think it's something we all, leaders throughout the world, need to pay a lot of attention to, and they need to be very careful with, because there's a lot of things happening that defy explanation. So, and it happens to correspond perfectly with what the World Economic Forum wants to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Daniel, I know you got to run, man. Have a fantastic weekend. I love having you with us, and we'll talk very soon.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, man. We'll be right back, everybody. And we are back. Rory Sauter and the news coming to you live from Palm Springs, California. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. It's been a fantastic show. We will see you all very soon. A lot of plans for 2024 on the program and on the two networks. Guys, until next time, I'm Rory Sauter. Have a fantastic weekend. God bless all of you. Much love. Cheers.